Well, good evening, WNBA and LA Sparks fans. Happy opening night and welcome into the LA Sparks 365 Network, your 24/7 365 comprehensive home of the WNBA and your two-time WNBA champion Los Angeles Sparks. Happy opening night, folks. We are all in a good mood here at the LA Sparks Network. Welcome in, folks, to the first edition of Sparks 365, the post-game show, folks, following the Sparks 80-69 victory over the Seattle Storm tonight up there at the Key Arena in Seattle, Washington, folks. Over the next half an hour, we'll get to everything from the game tonight, folks, the stats, game summaries, recap, and much more, folks. And coming up tonight, we begin the new trifecta of show, folks. The W at 10:30, buzzer beater LA 11 o'clock and 11:30, the Fab Forum here tonight, folks. As always, I am joined in the hangout here by the main guy here in the hangout, Chris Mancy from the Earnhardt Studios up in Anaheim, California. Chris, good evening, man. How's it hanging after that great win tonight?
Nothing much. I'm hanging here. I'm so pumped for the Sparks opening day and opening the season with the win.
Folks, by the way, you guys can hit us up on Twitter tonight, folks, at LA Sparks 365 with the hashtag Sparks 365, or like normal, click on the black box and join our live Q&A form as well. Okay, Chris, let's recap the game tonight, man. The first game in the Magic Johnson era, Chris, gets off on the right foot. The Sparks come in. They came, they saw, they conquered. 80-69 final, Sparks over the Storm tonight at the Key Arena in Seattle, Washington. Candace Parker scored 18 points. Elena Beard added 17, and the Sparks, whose future was uncertain in January after the previous owners suddenly relinquished the franchise, opened the WNBA season on Friday night with a 80-69 victory over the Seattle Storm. Parker also grabbed 6 rebounds for LA, who were purchased on February 5th by a group led by former NBA star Magic Johnson and LA Dodgers controlling owner Mark R. Walter. Jenna O'Hay led the Storm with 12 points. Sue Bird making her return to the Storm after missing the entire 2013 season to have assists removed in her left knee, had 7 points and 4 assists in 24 minutes of play. The Sparks went on a 17-3 run, bridging the first and second quarters, on the way to a 43-32 halftime lead. The Storm never got closer than 8 during the second half. Chris, looking back over that, it was basically total Sparks domination in that first half. A lot of good scoring, a lot of great ball movement, and Chris, lockdown defense played tonight too, Chris, forcing 14 Storm turnovers in that first half into the third man. What did you take away from the game tonight up there in the Pac Northwest?
Great defense by the Sparks, turning over Storm, leading it 2 points, and great around by the defense and the Sparks.
Chris, how about the offensive game tonight? It looked like for a while, man, Elena Beard could not miss if you put money on her missing, man. I believe she went through a stretch, Chris, of at least 7 consecutive baskets, hit a few big threes, a couple twos, a lot of, running layups, Chris. So, I mean, Chris, it wasn't just Candace Parker tonight like it normally was last season. Now, Chris, with the additions of Wiggins, of Gruda, of Harrington, Chris, now the floor can be spread open, and now you will see more players, Chris, not just Parker getting double figures, and between Elena and Candace, Chris, about 35 combined points, man. That's a good start to the first game of the season.
Yep, agreed.
Chris, going to the Storm real quick, they really never got off and running, Chris. They trailed pretty much all game, but maybe the early point of the contest tonight. The final game stats, folks, for the Sparks and Storm, for the Sparks tonight, they shot 46% from the field, 27.3% from the three-point line, and had a 94% rating from the free throw line. Their total stats: 5 total rebounds, 8 offensive rebounds, 13 turnovers, 11 points on fast break. And Chris, their largest lead of the night was 19. And Chris, 30 points in the paint for LA, also in the contest. So Chris, looking at the LA numbers again, the biggest one, Chris, out of the 3, free throw shooting, 46% from the field, 27% from the three-point line, and 94% from the free throw line. Chris, I think, in my view, the three-point shooting is going to be their X factor because, Chris, we know about what happened last year in the postseason. One measly three-pointer that entire 3-game series, Chris. So now it'll basically, Chris, boil down to three-point shooting. Do you think so here?
Yeah, but I think it'll come down to three-point shooting.
So again, with the Sparks opening up tonight up in Seattle. Chris, staying with the Storm here. They had a rough night, and Chris, their biggest lead was 1 point the entire night for Seattle. They never got going offensively, Chris. Their final stat totals for the night: 42% shooting from the field, 35% from the three-point line, and Chris, 78% from the charity stripe, Chris. Yeah, you know, I don't care, Chris, if this is the NBA, but WNBA or the NBA D-League, Chris, if you can't make free throws, you are not going to win a whole lot of ball games. And shooting below 80% from the field, Chris, is, you know, not a good start to the season.
Yep, agreed.
Chris, I mean, you'd be amazed, man, at how many games have come down to free throw shooting, man. You know, especially when Dwight Howard was with the Lakers, Chris. In your mind, man, when is the game in your mind normally decided, Chris? Is it normally decided on the scoreboard, or in your mind, does it boil down to free throw shooting in your mind for any team in any pro level?
Yeah, but I think it comes down to free throws, because it might come down to like last few minutes, and it might come down to the free throws.
So, Chris, going back to the Storm, their stat line here as well. They had 11 total rebounds, 5 offensively, but Chris, the big number here, 19 turnovers. The Sparks were they were +6 in the turnover department, Chris, and they only had 3 fast break points. And like I said earlier, man, their biggest lead of the night was 1 point, but they had 32 points in the paint, Chris. So obviously, man, you know, I will say this though, there was some nerves though for both teams early in the game. You know, you saw it early with the first game, Chris. But again, I mean, you know, your biggest lead, Chris, is being won, but above all, man, you turning the ball over 19, almost 20 times a game, you're not winning anytime soon. Plus, with free throw shooting, Chris, so Brian Agler I believe, Chris, has a few little tidbits to work out with the Storm, who play in Phoenix, Chris, tomorrow night before the Phoenix comes to LA for the home opener on Sunday night.
Yep.
Chris, what'd you make, though, tonight? Sue Bird, her first game back since last year, having the cyst removed from her knee. Chris, 24 minutes, 4 assists, 7 points. So obviously it looks like, Chris, with her old body, she is not quite the same Sue Bird of many years past. Do you think, though, Chris, it will take her a few games to get warmed up, though, to get back to being the Sue Bird of old, perhaps?
Yep, I think it'll take a few games, probably a few weeks, probably a few games, maybe a month, and to get Sue Bird back to her normal self.
Yeah, I'll give her 5 games. You know, 5 to 7 games for her to get back to working shape. Player statistics, folks, tonight. The player leaders tonight for the game for the Sparks. Candace Parker, 18 and 6. Elena Beard, 5 assists. Armenti Harrington, Chris, 4 steals. She also had a couple of lay-ins as well, and then 2 blocks. Candace Parker as well for Seattle. Jenna O'Hay, former Spark herself, 12 points. Crystal Langhorn, 9 points, 9 rebounds, I should say. Johnson, 6 assists. Noelle Quinn, 4 steals, and Clark, 4 blocks. Chris, I mean, you know the Storm had a rough night at the office, man, like you do sometimes at the bowling alley. If a bench player leads the team in scoring, I mean, how rough is that for Seattle to know that their leading scorer, man, came off the bench?
That means they did terrible in the starting lineup.
Chris, I think this is where the Storm are missing Lauren Jackson, who is out for the year again, torn ACL and MCL, Chris, because they could have used her in this game tonight, because I think if she was there, it wouldn't have been this bad of a blowout. It could have been maybe a 10-point win, but Chris, to know that the Sparks won by, 21 points tonight, I think, or at least 11 tonight up there in Seattle, wow. I mean, I think if LJ was there, man, if she was healthy, it would have been a completely different game, because she's that much of a game changer, and I think her loss might actually hurt the Storm for the remainder of the year.
Yep, agreed.
So again, folks, the Sparks tonight, 80-69 victory tonight over the Storm in Seattle. These two teams play each other again June 24th in LA at 12:30 p.m. So again, the Sparks win 80-69. They go to 1-0 in the year, while the Storm fall to 0-1. Your quarter by quarter scoring summary, folks. First quarter scoring 22 for LA in the first, 21 in the second for LA, 18 and 19 third and fourth. For the Storm, 17 and 15 in the 17 and 15 1 and 2, and 13 and 24 3 and 4. And Chris, I mean, we're gonna have to think of a name, kind of like how Ralph Lawler has Lawler's Law for the first team to 100 points that scores that wins. Chris, we need to have like some sort of law for the Sparks. 20 or more points in each quarter, they'll win. But Chris, they got it 2 of the 4, so we'll let them slide on this one. But again, Chris, you got to get at least 20 or more, and you should be able to win the game. So we're gonna have to think of a term, of some terminology for the 20-point rule in each quarter, I guess, right?
Yep, right.
So again, folks, Sparks 80-69 victory over the Storm. We'll get you folks caught up on all the other games at 10:30 tonight when we break out our new show, the W, whip around coverage of all the games going on in the league. That'll be tonight at 10:30, following the postgame show here tonight. Chris, Chris, this was by far one of the better games the Sparks have played, I think, in quite some time. We know about what happened during the playoffs last year, where they really struggled. Chris, we're gonna go beyond the box score here, Chris, and break down the players on the Sparks. First, for the Sparks, Elena Beater, 27 minutes played, 7 of 12 from the field, 1 of 1 from three-point land, 2 of 2 from free throws, a plus 12. 5 assists as well, 17 points. Candace Parker, 32 minutes played, 8 of 13. 2 of 2 from the free throw line, plus 10, 18 points. Nneka Ogwumike, Chris, we'll get to her in a second here about her possible minor precautionary back injury. 9 minutes played, 2 of 3 from the field, plus 9. 4 points. Christy Tolliver, 26 minutes played, 4 of 10. 2 of 6 from the three-point line, 3 of 3 from the charity stripe, plus 13. He had 13 points. Lindsey Harding, 28 minutes played, 1 of 10 from the field, 0 for 3 from the three-point line, 2 of 2 from the field, from the free throw line, I should say, -1 in differential, 4 points. And Jantel Lavender, 10 points in 60 minutes played, off the bench tonight. Arminty Harrington, 6 points. Candace Wiggins, 10 minutes played, no points. Sandrine Gruda, 6 points, but had foul trouble. Nikki Green got into the game, 2 minutes played, no points. And Faria Abdi, 2 points in only 4 minutes played in the contest. Chris, to Nneka Ogwumike real quick, man. We got word from the Tamara Cable Sportsnet crew. Minor back strain, could possibly was held out for the second half to rest the back, and more likely, Chris, if feeling fine, will play on Sunday. But Chris, if Nneka cannot go this upcoming Sunday, is that a significant blow to the Sparks, knowing that they have Brittany Griner and Diana Taurasi coming into town on Sunday in the Phoenix Mercury? Will Nneka's loss, Chris, if it happens on Sunday, wanting to give her one more game to rest her back, will that be a possible X factor come Sunday against the Mercury?
It might, but I think the Sparks could find a way to limit Brittany Griner and Dan Taurasi, to limit points and to find a way to win the game on Sunday.
Chris, I think even if Nneka is, pun intended here, Chris, if NO is a no-go on Sunday, you already have your pieces, Chris, back up in place. Between Nikki Green, who is at 6'4", you do have J-Lab, you do have Sandrine Gruda, Chris, so there are those tall bodies that can come off the bench if Nneka cannot play on Sunday, in the form of the 6'4" footers like Parker, like J-Lab, and like Sandrine Gruda, as well as Nikki Green, Chris. So you have the backup plans in place, Chris. But it's just to see who will match up good, though, against Griner. You're obviously going to put Parker on DT, because they're both because Parker owns her height-wise by 4 inches. But then again, Chris, you're going up against Griner at 6'8". There's not a lot of players, Chris, in the league that are at 6'8", so you're going to have to weigh out options, Chris. But I think if the Sparks can put 2 tall bodies on Griner, they should be, and they could be fine, I think, on Sunday. But again, without NO, possibly, man, on Sunday. She is listed as day to day, Chris. She can't play Sunday, but again, if she's out, might be some trouble, I think, for Carol Ross, Gale, and Klopp on Sunday to figure out how to switch up their lineup card on Sunday night.
Yep, agreed.
So again, folks, Sparks and Mercury Sunday night, 6 p.m. on Time Warner Cable Sportsnet. Chris, back over to the Storm. Rough night at the office for them, only putting up 69 points, Chris. The box score for them, Noelle Quinn, 22 minutes played, 1 of 3 from the field, 0 for 1 on the three-point attempts. 6 for 6 from the free throw line, -12, 8 points. Camilla Little, 8 points. Crystal Langhorn, 6 points. Tanisha Wright, 5 points. Sue Bird, only 7 points in 24 minutes of action. And then, of course, Chris, worth noting as well, Jenna O'Hay off the bench, 12 points, 4 of 7 from the field, 1 for 3 from the three-point arc, -1 in the differential. And also, Chris, Nicole Powell did not play. Coach's decision. So, again, Chris, looking at that box score, man, pretty tough for Seattle, only having 1 player in double figures, Chris. And again, That player was Jenna Ohei coming off the bench, Chris. Again, not really good, man. Not a good sign. I know it's only game one, Chris, but again, a bad sign though for Brian Agler and his team that if a bench player is your only double-digit scorer, you have some problems, and it might be worse tomorrow night down there in the desert. Chris, what do you take away from the Storm? I know it's the first game, Chris, but again, your thoughts about Seattle's rough night at the office there up there in the Emerald City this evening?
Just didn't have it all tonight. Their only double-digit score was off the bench, and just didn't have it tonight in their own building.
Chris, okay, it is first game, so we'll lay off a bit here, Chris. But okay, first game, we know about that. But again, I'm going to go back to my previous point, man, of this being a different team. Without Tina Thompson, she retired. Without Chris, now without Lauren Jackson because she's out for the season. Like we say a lot, man, that one player cannot carry the load, Chris, and Sue Bird at her age cannot do it anymore. Again, coming off of her knee surgery, Chris, I can't keep beating down that dead horse, Chris, but one player of that dynamic like Sue Bird cannot keep carrying the load. You have to have more players, Chris, in my view, that actually will help out here. Now, I think, Chris, Noelle Quinn will get going eventually, as will, a few other players on that roster between Noelle Quinn and Crystal Langhorne as well, man. And, Chris, I still am kind of upset, Chris, and still kind of dumbfounded as to why the Storm would trade Chris Bria Hartley to the Mystics when she was going to be a good player summer, Chris. But, I know about her and Stephanie Dolson's relationship at UConn, but Chris, I think if Seattle would have kept her, it could have been different. But then again, she's a rookie. It would have been her first game too, like it was tonight. But I don't know, man. And Seattle is going to be a tough puzzle to solve this year. They might be a 4 seed, Chris, but after tonight, knowing Chris that their bench was the only double-digit figure tonight, just a tough way to go down for the Storm.
Yep, I agree. And since San Antonio Stars almost beat Atlanta in Atlanta, I'm almost surprised if they're the number 4 seed.
I think the Stars could be a factor depending if Becky Hammond comes back from her ankle injury now this point in time as well. Also, folks, good to get this real quick as well, but again, Nicole Powell traded recently from the Shock to the Storm. Did not play due to coach's decision. And Chris, also wanted to let you know about this, man. Tonight's attendance, Chris, at the Key Arena, Chris, 8,749 people at the game tonight. And also, Chris, this was the first time I can recall, man, that we have had a all-male refereeing crew tonight, Chris. Michael Price, Thomas Nunez, and Roy Goldbean, the men in the orange striped shirts tonight, Chris. And that was kind of surprising because normally, Chris, you will see a WNBA game, Chris, at least have one female official, so it was a bit strange to see that happen. But, Chris, how about that crowd tonight, man? 8,000 plus at Key Arena, Chris. I know that the Sparks will have a good crowd Sunday, Chris, but like what was recently on WNBA.com, Chris, there is no better home court advantage for any team, Chris, other than the Key Arena in Seattle, Chris, because the Storm Crazies are alive and well, man, and they were kept quiet tonight, Chris, but trust me, it got pretty loud in there when they got back with an 8. But again, Chris, it's always good, though, to see fans come out on a Friday night, Chris, the home opener, and, hey, 8,000 plus tonight, so hats off to the fans up there in Seattle to come out and support the WNBA and the Sparks and Storm tonight.
Yep, agreed.
And Chris, going back to what we talked about last night about the traveling zoo with the Sparks and the ovation, Shorty Mama 24, Chris, reported beat LA Chance when they were down 12. So the cultural treatment was alive and well. But Chris, I wonder though, man, what do you think happened though before the game though during Sparks pregame introductions though at the Key Arena though? Do you think there was something at all or probably not? What do you think?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not, but we'll see what occurs, though, folks, later on down the road. But again, folks, Sparks 365 post-game show here. And again, folks, coming up next, we will take you around the league, a whip-around coverage, folks, of all the games going on in the WNBA. The WNBA whip-around show. The W is up next here, folks, on the LA Sparks 365 network here, folks. And also remember right now, folks, on WNBAshop.com, you can get free shipping on all U.S. orders, so go to WNBAshop.com and score some deals on your favorite WNBA team's merchandise right now at WNBAshop.com. And also, folks, a note for you folks, Sparks home opener is on Sunday night, May 18th at 6 p.m. versus the Phoenix Mercury at Staples Center. The first 5,000 fans in attendance will take home a opening night Sparks t-shirt. Get your tickets today, folks, by calling 877-GO-SPARKS or order your seats online at LASparks.com. Sparks basketball, expect magic. So, Chris, We know that Magic Johnson, Chris, was at the Dodger game tonight in Arizona, Chris. But do you think, though, Chris, that Magic and Mark were kind of watching their phones to see how the Sparks were doing, though, up there in Seattle tonight for their first game?
Yeah, I think they were watching on their phones how their Sparks are doing in Seattle.
I mean, Chris, come on. The Dodgers were playing the damn Diamondbacks. It's basically a gimme, Chris. So they probably weren't even watching the game, and now they're probably watching. Chris, for all that I know, they probably said, you know, we're going to win this game because we're playing Arizona. They suck. You know what? So we'll just sit up here in the owner's box. We'll chill out and watch the Sparks play the Seattle Storm. But again, folks, Sunday night, Sparks Mercury, the home opener, May 18th, 6 p.m. Phoenix Mercury and the Sparks. Opening night T-shirt on May 18th for the first 5,000 fans through the doors at the big office up there in Los Angeles. Chris, we are getting ready, man, to debut one of our 3 brand new shows. The W coming up next, man. And what are you really excited for, man? This is going to be a very fun block now following our post-game show, folks. And we have the W coming up next at 10:30. We'll have Buzzer Beater LA, folks, at 11 o'clock, which will be basically our compacted game recap, folks. So we'll take you through all the play-by-play, the box scores, and everything from the game. And, of course, Chris, at 11:30, we get the Fab form up and rolling, and we'll have a little bit of roundtable discussion, some debate, some news, some controversy. And, Chris, we'll have our first Twitter fan poll tonight, too, at 11:30. So, Chris, how pumped are you, man, for the up-and-coming new block of shows, man, debuting in about 6 minutes here on the network?
So pumped up for the new show's debut and release soon.
So, again, folks, the W, which will provide whip-around coverage, folks, of every game tonight, the WNBA coming up next at 10:30. We will recap all the big plays from the Sparks game tonight in Seattle, packed into a 30-minute compacted show of Buzzer Beater LA. And then 11:30 p.m., folks, the Fabulous Forum opens up to talk about the WNBA. And also, folks, we'll have our first Twitter and online poll for you folks where you guys can take part in involving Sunday night, involving myself, which will be our Twitter poll question on Sunday night. Chris, back to you, man. I know that you were going between the Ducks and Kings game and the Angel game, man. Your final thoughts, man, about tonight's game up there in Seattle, what you saw, what you liked, what you didn't like, and also your thoughts about Sunday's home opener in LA against the Phoenix Mercury.
Just great game tonight for the Sparks. Beating them by, I think, by 11 points. Yeah, by 11 points. Great around by the offense and the defense with AB looking great tonight. And, yeah.
Chris, I'm going to go, I'll look at it this way, Chris, is it was a all-around great team win. Okay, you lose a big puzzle piece like NECA due to a little bit of a back problem, perhaps. Candace Parker looked like Chris tweaked a bit of, either tweaked her knee, tweaked a hip. It looked like earlier in the game she went a little bit in pain, but she was fine. All around, man, great overall game. And Chris, it looks like that chemistry is finally there. You know, it looks like, Chris, that everyone is gelling as a unit. Got to polish up a few things, Chris, like, you know, some turnovers late in the game. You know, having that big lead, Chris, but not, you know, giving it away giving it away a lot. You know, letting teams get back into the ball game. So you got to work on that, of course, Chris. But I thought, at least tonight, Chris, the defense was the big part. Again, a lot of, you know, some steals, forcing a lot of turnovers, man. Fast break points, of course, which is, of course, what predicated, Chris, the Showtime Lakers back in the day was fast break offense. So that's going to rub off thanks to Magic Johnson, Chris. And again, a great all-around game, man. Offense was there. The defense did its job and stepped up in the big, stepped up big, shutting down the big puzzle pieces of the Storm tonight, and again forcing the bench to be the big time scorer for the Storm. So I think, man, a great all-around game. Now, Chris, let's go to you here for the Sparks look ahead, man, to Sunday night. Basically, Chris, Game 4. We're going to basically call it, Chris, Game 4 from the Western Conference Semis last year. Sparks and Mercury, Sunday night, 6 p.m. on Sportsnet at Staples Center, Chris. Home opener, I'm going to be there, I know, with a bunch of other people. About at least 13,000 more people are going to be there along with myself, man. What do you think here, man? We know about the postseason last year. Give us your preview, your thoughts, and your analysis for Sunday night's game with the Sparks and the Mercury with the longest running and the best rivalry in the WNBA. What do you got for us?
The Sparks are probably going to come out and giving it to the Phoenix Mercury. And the It's probably be a close game, but the Sparks will win on Sunday.
Chris, my big aspiration here for the Sparks is come out and look for some payback. You're looking for revenge for what occurred September 23rd when we were at the Angel game, and you guys once again had your hearts broken in the last seconds by a jumper by Brittany Griner. Once again in the postseason, losing by 1. Chris, you got to come out like you played tonight, and you have got to take it. You have got to take them behind the woodshed, Chris, early and often in quarter 1. You've got to jump out, Chris, to a 10. To a big lead, 4, 6, 8, 10, 15. Chris, you got to have a big lead is what I'm saying here. You got to jump out there, Chris, and you've got to make every single basket in the opening minutes here to have a shot because, Chris, with DT and Griner and all the other weapons, Chris, it's not going to be easy coming for LA on Sunday night up there in LA. But, Chris, you've got your home court advantage. You've got your 13,000, myself included and my dad. You've got Mulsky. You've got CJ. You've got Hewish-Bush. Chris, you've got your building. You've got the big office. You've got Staples Center. You've got Magic, and you've got the Lakers banners up there. Not no damn LA Clippers selfies, Chris. You've got your home court advantage, Chris. Now it's up to the team, Chris, to come out and take the Mercury, Chris, behind that woodshed early in that game. Because, Chris, if they don't do that, they are in trouble on Sunday night if they do not do what I just said.
Yep, agree. Because if Phoenix gets to a big lead, or if Phoenix leads after 1, or get to a big lead, it's probably going to be over, probably.
So, Chris, again, we've got to go back to it, man, but you've got to take care of business in the game. And, Chris, we have to wait and see what occurs on Sunday, but it's going to be it's not going to be pretty, folks. It might be bowling shoe ugly, but it's going to be a good game. Sparks Mercury Sunday night, 6 p.m. at Staples Center on Time Warner Cable Sportsnet with Jim Watson and the whole cast of characters on Time Warner Cable Sportsnet, 6 p.m. game time at Staples Center on Sunday night. All right, folks, we'll take our first timeout when we come back, folks. Whip around coverage from every game in the WNBA, the debut of the W. Up next here, folks, with live whip around coverage, folks, of every game ongoing in the WNBA is up next here. Game recaps and scores and everything included revolving around the WNBA. The W is up next here, folks, on the LA Sparks 365 Network. Do not go away.